Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 710, and today's date is July 7th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Government Wants Assad to Step Down or Else War. Now, before we get started, I just have an announcement. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I will be uploading an interview with G. Edward Griffin. And if you're on the X22Report.com alert system, you will get an email. If you are subscribed to the X22 Report Spotlight channel, YouTube is supposed to send you an email when the video is uploaded. But if you do not receive that, you can always go to the channel just by going to YouTube, typing in X22 Report Spotlight, or you can come to the X22Report.com site. You will see the interview on the right-hand side. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, the situation out in Greece is heating up right now. Not much has changed, but we see a lot of propaganda going back and forth about this proposal. And of course, as we know, Greece and the central bank, they're completely separate and far apart on the talking points. But we see out in France, the French citizens are saying, you know something? Maybe Greece should leave the Eurozone. I mean, last month they were saying about 39% of them were saying that Greece should leave the Eurozone. Now it's up to 50%. And we can see at this point in time, the central bankers want their money. I mean, we see German Chancellor Angela Merkel and François Hollande, they're saying, listen, there's no such thing as debt forgiveness. We want all the money. You have to pay the central bankers. Well, if we go back to 1953, Germany received some debt forgiveness at that point in time. How soon everyone forgets that, yeah, sometimes there is debt forgiveness, especially if that debt was created using fraud, criminal activity. That is odious debt where the people are not responsible for that. And this is why Greece launched an investigation into this. And they're saying, yes, this portion of the debt is odious. We do not have to pay it. Now, there are reports coming out from the Deputy Minister of Finance saying that the safety deposit box, they will be shut down. You will not have access to them. And a lot of people are concerned about this because they place their currency, precious metals in the safety deposit boxes. And we know this is not a good thing to do. We know here in the United States that once the banks shut down, the banks can go into the safety deposit box. DHS has the ability to search and confiscate the precious metal inside the safety deposit box. So I wouldn't be putting currency or precious metals inside the box because you will have no access to it whatsoever. And the new finance minister, because as we know, Varoufakis resigned, and I think he's a better choice to handle this. But again, this is up to Greece. He went and proposed nothing at this point in time. There is no proposal whatsoever. Because how can there be a proposal? Because anything that Greece proposes is going to be completely opposite of what the central bankers want. This is what we've been seeing all along. Now, there are a couple scenarios. I mean, first, there can be a complete and major restructure of everything in Greece, much larger than the central bankers wanted before. And Greece can just bow down to it and say, okay, we will do it. They can launch a parallel currency, the drachma, alongside the euro, and eventually get rid of the euro. Or they can go bankrupt, default, and they can leave the Eurozone. Of course, this will trigger the derivative market. Of course, the central bankers are saying, no, this is a payment moratorium. It's not a default. We don't have to worry about this. But yeah, when someone leaves the Eurozone and they go bankrupt and they decide not to pay, it's a default. They can call it whatever they want, whatever word they want to do, but it is a default. Now, Standard & Poor's is out there, and they predicted it's a 50% chance that Greece is going to leave the euro. They've upped that percentage a little bit, saying the percentage is now growing because as time goes on, the situation is getting worse, and we see that, there could be a possible Greek exit. Now, what's very interesting about all this, as soon as the referendum was complete, who did Tsipras call? He didn't call Merkel, Hollande. He called Putin. And we have to remember, they agreed upon the Turkish Stream pipeline, where Putin is going to pay Greece about $2 billion. It's going to spur economic growth, put people back to work. He didn't call Obama. Actually, he just called Obama, and what is it, 2 days later? And of course, Obama is telling him, listen, got to come up with some type of deal here. You got to stay in the Eurozone because we said so. And the question is the United States government central bankers going to step in? Are they going to bail Greece out? Will they create money and bail them out? Or maybe tell Germany to write off some of the debt? I mean, we can see this. This could be a possibility. Or can Greece say, you know something, we're defaulting and we're going to take a handout from Russia to help us out here? I mean, any of these scenarios are possible at this point in time. And the Greek minister warns that the banks might not open on Wednesday. They might be closed the entire week, which is not good because he says the banks need to be open for the country to operate. But as the situation is getting kind of worse, or it's stagnant, nothing's really happening, he says there's no reason to believe that the banks will open anytime soon. I mean, the central bankers want their money, period. This is what they've been trying to get all along. They want the country in debt. They want their interest payment on the money. They want to capture the natural resources of the country. And they're not going to let up whatsoever. I mean, the U.S. president called German chancellor and told Merkel to get a durable deal done ASAP. More importantly, was Obama's insistence to support the IMF sticking point, namely to achieve debt sustainability, which of course is ludicrous, but it means that both Lagarde and Obama are now pressuring Germany to haircut Greek debt. Will the U.S. central bankers step in? They might. They've stepped in many different cases before. They've never stopped stepping in because they want to control what happens. When this system comes tumbling down, they want to be in control of it. If it comes crumbling down right now, who is to blame? And you have to remember, the central bankers are very worried. They don't want Greece to leave the Eurozone, because if they leave the Eurozone and they pivot to Russia or to the BRIC system, and economic growth occurs in Greece, and GDP gets better, people get employed, they start paying off their debt, other countries are going to look at this and say, wait a minute, they can do this without the central bank? Actually, they're doing better than what we're doing as we accept more debt. They wrote off the debt, they defaulted, and now their economy's growing. This is what happened in Iceland. And this is the central bankers' biggest worry, because if the countries around the world see they can survive without the central bank, they're all going to follow. And this is the worst case scenario for them. It's the best case scenario for the people, worst case scenario for the central bankers. Now, the BRIC system, they are saying that the BRIC bank could finance projects in other countries, including Greece. And the Russian deputy finance minister is out there saying, listen, there is absolutely no reason why Greece can't receive financing from the BRIC system. So what are we seeing here right now? We're seeing that Greece is in limbo. They're buying some time still. They're looking to get the best deal possible. And they want to see how far the central banking system will go to accommodate what they want, because they know at this point in time that people do not accept the central banking deal. So we're going to have to watch this situation as it unfolds. We'll keep looking at the indicators to see which way Greece is going to pivot, and we'll just have to follow it. Now, out in China, we see the stock market out there has come tumbling down. They've lost about 25% since mid-June. And the Bank of China, the People's Bank of China, has injected about $8.2 billion into the money market on Tuesday, trying to prop up the entire system. Maybe they should have the plunge protection and the high-frequency trading that we have here in the United States, because every time the market goes down, all they do is turn those on overdrive, and it keeps the market propped up. I mean, it's very simple to do, and maybe every country should do it. But again, this means the market is completely controlled. It's not real. And at this point in time, we're going to have to see and watch what is going on in China, because this could also have a ripple effect across the world. And we can see when we look around the world, we see so many different situations that the economies of the world are completely falling apart, because each one of these countries is dependent on each other. And if one falls, the other falls. Just like in 2008, this spread to other countries. Now, every country was not hit the same way, but the crisis did spread. And of course, as we know, we're all interconnected. But those countries with gold, they will be able to ride out this crisis. Those countries without gold, they are going to have a tough time. Now, we see the chiefs of the BRICS central banks, they have signed an operating agreement on the currency reserve pool, according to a statement by the Russian central bank. The operating agreement contains a detailed description of the procedures which are carried out by the central banks of the BRICS states within the currency reserve pool. They defined their rights and duties. So far, the total amount of currency reserve pool is $100 billion. And this is the breakdown of each country. China is $41 billion, Brazil $18 billion, Russia $18 billion, India $18 billion, and South Africa $5 billion. Now, Russia is discussing a payment system cooperation with the BRICS framework so they can have everything interconnected. We also see that the U.S. Mint has suspended the Silver Eagle sales. Bill Holter said the U.S. Mint has suspended sales of Silver Eagles, and we can see at this point in time the U.S. Mint has notified authorized dealers that it is entirely sold out of Silver Eagles, and they will not be taking further orders until August of 2015. Very interesting. So it looks like there is some type of shortage of silver. Now, as we know, the banking system here in the United States, Europe, and other countries, they've been preparing for another crisis like 2008. Actually, it's going to be much, much worse, because what they've done is they've blown up the bubbles. It's not a real economy. It's not a people economy. It's a central banking economy. And they know that this whole entire thing is going to be tumbling down. This is why they've been using the term bail-in, because the Dodd-Frank Act says no longer can the people bail out the banking system. So they've been making preparations since that time to bail in. And we see that banks in Greece are closed. The people's money are stuck. They can't get it out. They only can take out a little bit each time. They're being Cyprused. And we know the banks here in the United States, Canada, the other countries in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, we know that they have bail-in documents. And we know the banks are getting ready for a major crisis. And a dozen of the Wall Street banks, they've published detailed plans to show how they would shut down their business during a crisis without the taxpayer money. And I love the way they say this. We're going to do it without the taxpayer money. Well, no, you're doing it with the taxpayer money. That is called a bail-in. Instead of going to the government and the government borrowing money from the central bank and having the people eventually owe that money, they're just going to go and bypass all that and go directly to the people's money, which is in the bank. So, yeah, they're still going after the people's money. And they're saying this is a crucial step to prevent being broken up by regulators. If you notice, everything the central bank does, it does to protect themselves. Again, like I said, the central bank has no allegiance to a people or to a country. It is to themselves. They protect themselves from what is coming. If they have to rob, steal, take what they need, they will do it. And this will occur when the governments can no longer raise revenue. And it gets to that point where they're like, okay, the debt is too high. We don't have enough revenue. It's time to say, okay, we need to bring the system down. We propped it up as much as we possibly can. We will do it in a controlled form where we can blame this on another group or country. And this is what they've been preparing for. I mean, they're going to try to stretch this out as long as they possibly can. They don't want to be blamed for a collapse. They're doing whatever they possibly can to control the situation. I mean, they try with so many different type of programs. Look at Obamacare, for instance. They created this system, the Affordable Care Act. They're telling people that it is good for you, but it's intertwined with taxes, penalties, and it benefits the insurance companies and brings in revenue to the government. It does not help the people whatsoever. Obama so far has spent billions of dollars on this. The website didn't work. They hired friends. It was a complete disaster, but they paid them billions of dollars. They called it the Affordable Care Act. Congress was not even allowed to see it. The people had no idea what they were getting. Obama promised you can keep your doctor, you can keep your insurance policy, and all of it turned out to be a lie. And they named it the Affordable Care Act, and guess what? It is not affordable whatsoever. And I said this before. When the insurance company writes the bill, and they all come together and say, if we force everyone into it, we make it mandatory, there's no more competition, we can make the prices, the premiums, anything we want. And this is exactly what the insurance companies did. It is benefiting the insurance company. Of course, they use all these different excuses. Oh, we're hurting. We didn't realize it was going to be this bad. You knew what was going on. You created the bill, and you knew you were going to raise the premiums. So the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable because what we're seeing right now is that health insurance companies around the country are seeking rate increases of 20 to 40% or more. The Oregon Insurance Commissioner, Laura N. Calley, just approved 2016 rate increases for companies that cover more than 220,000 people. Moda Health Plan, which has the largest enrollment in the state, received a 25% increase. The second largest plan, LifeWise, received a 33% increase. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Mexico requested 51% for its 33,000 members. And this will spread across the country. And guess what benefit you're going to get from it? Nothing, because you'll be paying the premium every single month, and you'll have that high deductible. Again, you have to meet that high deductible of $5, $10, $15, $20,000 before the insurance companies will even pay. And if you take the plan without the deductible, it's not affordable. It's very, very expensive. This was not a benefit for the people, and this is why the government employees decided, hey, we're just going to exempt ourselves from this. We're going to keep what we have because we know that's better. And that's exactly what they did. Now, we understand the Supreme Court rules on many cases, like Obamacare, like the NSA spying on people. And right now, the Supreme Court top justices, two associate justices, have repeatedly ruled in cases involving companies in which they owned stock. And this is according to a court watchdog group. The organization Fix the Court says in a report that Chief Justice Roberts, Associate Justice Stephen Breyer, and Samuel Alito have created potential conflicts of interest by participating in decisions that affect their stock portfolio. Here are some examples of this. The Fix the Court include 3 class action cases: Walmart versus Dukes, AT&T versus Conception, Comcast versus Behrend, in which Roberts owned up to 100,000 in shares of Intel, which filed a brief in support of Comcast, up to 100,000 in shares of Dell, which supported AT&T, and up to 400,000 combined shares of Intel, Microsoft, and Hewlett-Packard, which filed for Walmart. Basically, they were in conflict of interest. They should have recused themselves and said, listen, I cannot be part of this. But they did not. How can these people be on the Supreme Court? And as we know, these Supreme Court justices have been compromised by the NSA spying. We saw what happened with Obamacare. We saw what happened with other cases. And we realize that they are compromised. They are doing what the government employees want. They're looking out for themselves, making sure that they're secure. They don't want to lose their investments. They're going to do everything they possibly can to keep their money and make sure they make a profit. All of these people need to step down, or they need to be removed. But again, no one is doing anything. Now, yesterday we talked about the NSA, how they spied on Brazil, but it's coming out now, coming from Assange, that the NSA intercepts about 98% of Latin American communications. They want to know what's going on in each part of the world. And this is not just spying on governments. This is spying on investment ideas, businesses, patents. Of course, the government officials there, they want to know everything so they can use this information to plan coups d'etats. But again, when these countries find out, they're going to look away from the United States. They're not going to react friendly to the United States. They don't even want to be part of the United States. And they're going to turn to other countries. And this is what we're seeing right now. It's continuing. And as time goes on, it is getting worse. If you look, South America, Central America, Asia, a lot of countries are turning towards Russia, China, the BRICS system, turning away from the United States. And this trend will continue. A lot of these countries have already prepared themselves for when the time comes where the United States completely collapses and the dollar completely falls apart. This is why they're making the bilateral trades with China, because they understand they need an insurance policy. They need to be protected from what is coming. Out in Ukraine, we see the situation is ramping up there. Senator Roger Wicker, he's describing that when Crimea was taken away from Ukraine, that was Russia aggression. Well, no. The people had a vote. They got together. They had people monitoring the voting system, and they decided they didn't want to be part of a government that was not put there by the people. It was put there by another power. And that power was the United States government, who had a coup d'etat in the country that removed the elected government and put in a puppet government. This is what the Southeastern people are doing right now. They're saying, we do not want to be a part of this. And of course, the United States is saying that, no, we have nothing to do with Ukraine. Really? Then why is the U.S. in there with advisors training the forces? Why are they training police forces? Why did the U.S. government step in, put Georgia's former president, Mikhail Saakashvili, into power? And why is he now the governor of Odessa? Why is his salary being paid by the United States government? So let's see. The United States government can place this person and his staff into power in Odessa. They could pay his salary, most likely his health benefits and everything else, but we cannot save Detroit from having the water shut off. That we can't save other cities, or we can't spend the money to improve infrastructure here in the United States, but we have enough to pay for the Free Syrian Army. We have enough to pay for a governor in Odessa. We have enough to send to other countries. We have enough to fund Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen, because all of this is run by the central banking system. They could care less what happens here in the United States. They want to spread debt. They want other countries. They want to capture their natural resources. And this is completely evident when we look around at what is happening here. Now, out in Ukraine, the shelling is continuing in the Donetsk airport area. Ukrainian troops are shelling the settlement of Spartak near the Donetsk airport. About 10 artillery and 5 tank shells have hit the area, and it's completely ongoing, violating the Minsk II agreement. But again, the Kiev government, which is controlled by the U.S. government, they don't care, because as we know, they're never going to follow the Minsk II agreement. They're getting prepared, they're getting ready for a major offensive to take back the southeastern region and eventually move into Crimea and try to take that back. And this is why we've been seeing all the propaganda about Russian troops, how they're massing tanks and other equipment. And of course, this is not true. They have no proof. And they're going to continue with the propaganda until they get the war started. Now, it looks like the Chief of General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, General Viktor Muzhenko, will meet U.S. Armed Forces Chief of General Staff, General Raymond Odierno, and they're talking about what is happening in Ukraine. So we can see already at this point in time that something is getting ready to go hot. Now, the thing is, how are they going to push this forward? Most likely it will be with some type of event. Now, we see that Ashton Carter met with Poltorak for the first time during the NATO defense meetings in Brussels. And we see that they're talking about bringing in more advisors, or I like to call them troops, to train the Ukrainian forces. They're saying that they definitely need more troops in this area for security reasons, to train the Ukrainian forces. And Ashton Carter is saying, yeah, I think we will continue to add more and more troops to this area, help out with the training, because we know why this is all occurring at this point in time. Now, France is definitely not going to deliver the Mistral warships to Russia. And they're going to owe money. They're going to have to refund Russia. Russia looks like they're going to build their own ships. And France, under pressure of the United States government central bankers, is definitely not going to deliver these ships whatsoever. So that whole thing has completely died. Russia most likely now will try to get their money back if they can. Now, the P5+1 talks are continuing, but it looks like both sides can't come to any type of agreement, and the agreement seems to be out of reach right now. And it looks like they are extending the deadline to July 10th, maybe to the 13th now. And we see both sides are still having a problem agreeing. And you have to remember, this whole agreement is not being done because of nuclear weapons. I mean, for 30 years now, they continually said that Iran is building and they're going to use a nuclear weapon. They sign the NPT agreement. They have IAEA inspections. They never found any traces of any type of nuclear weapon whatsoever. But we have to remember what the entire goal was for all of this time. They want to get into Iran. They would love to have a regime change because it would make it easier for the U.S. government, central bankers, Israel, and other countries to control the country once this occurs, just like Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Yemen, Ukraine, which is not going too well. And their goal has always been the same, to get into this country, place their natural resources on the US dollar, and set up a central bank. And they're going to continue to do this. Now, I'm sure a lot of these talks, a lot of the things that are not discussed are being kept a secret under lock and key, like the terms of the central bank, how are other countries going to pay for their oil when they do business with Iran. The only things they're letting out is because it is the nuclear weapon part of it, because this is what everyone's concerned about. But when we look at the situation here, we can see that if these talks go south, they will make their move and go into Iran no matter what, just like they're doing with Syria. And we see in all these different areas, in all these Middle East countries, we see the same situation occurring. The puppet governments were put into place, the people are rising up, the United States government is losing control, and they're going to do whatever they possibly can to take control of these countries. And this is why they're pushing for the authorization for war so hard. We see the proxy army for the United States government, central bankers, continually is creating chaos in each of these countries. And they are continually doing this so the United States government can go into each and every one of these countries. Right now, they are preparing to set up safe zones, buffer zones in Syria, because they know they're going to mount an offensive in this country. And we see Obama out there saying, yes, this is going to be a long, drawn-out war. We cannot defeat our own proxy army in Syria. I mean, think about what he just said here. And this will go on for a long time unless we can get troops in Syria. And I love the corporate media out there saying, oh, Obama says he's not going to place any more troops on the ground. Of course he isn't, because he can't. He doesn't have the authorization for war. He can send a couple hundred advisors in at a time, but he has to explain that. So right now, yeah, he's not really sending the troops that are really needed. And this is why they're saying it's going to take a very long time, because they're running into obstacles in Syria. It's not as easy as they thought it was going to be to remove Assad with the proxy army, with the Free Syrian Army. And it's funny because Obama kind of messed up when he was talking about the proxy army for the United States, and he actually used the term the Islamic State. And it looks like they were trying to cover that up. And I have that video on the X22Report.com site if you want to listen to that and see how he kind of made a little blooper there and called the Iraqi forces something different. And we see right now that Obama is out there and he is telling Assad that he must step down. Actually, if we go back in time, 188 days and 4 years ago, President Obama demanded the Syrian President Assad resign at this time. If we fast forward to today, the only way the civil war will end in a way so that the Syrian people can unite against this terrorist force, Assad must step down. And if he doesn't step down, there will be war. This is what the United States government central bankers are planning for. They are planning to go back into Syria. Think about it. It has been 4 years and 188 days since the president has said this. Time is running out. They believe they need to get into this country, then Iran, and place the dollar in each one of these countries. It has to be used to sell their natural resources. This has been a plan all along. The goal is the same. The tactics are now changing. And we've seen it change over the years. And now the United States government central bankers are getting ready to go into Syria. Remember, we're coming up to the summer months. And all indicators at this point in time, unless something dramatic changes, it looks like there's going to be some type of an event. Most likely in August sometime. Because as we know, Congress takes vacation during this period. In the last 2 years, we've seen something occur. And we're going to watch the situation. We are in July right now. The propaganda is continuing. Obama just said, Assad, you must step down. And you know he's not going to do this. They tried this with the Geneva II talks. After the whole event in 2013 failed, where they tried to say Assad used sarin gas. And they tried to go in at that point in time, and they wanted to be the Air Force for the Free Syrian Army and just bomb Syria. Fast forward to 2014, when they had the Geneva II talks, their only agenda was, Assad, please step down. We also have to remember they removed all the Syrian diplomats here in the United States and replaced it with the Free Syrian Army diplomats, getting prepared for the new government to step in and replace Assad. So right now we see Damascus is being surrounded. They're pushing. They want to set up safe zones so they can call the eastern part of Syria a territory that does not belong to Syria anymore. I don't know what they're going to call it. Maybe they'll call it the Free Syrian Territory. And they're going to say, yeah, we can put troops on there now because this is not Syria. And we are definitely headed towards this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.